Hello and welcome back to the Snakebite. We have men's basketball, women's basketball, hockey, and a few more sports are starting up soon. So make sure to stay through the end of this one. We have a ton to cover. Let's roll the intro. Last season, the Sunshine State Conference had 4 teams in the top 5 nationally in strength of schedule for men's basketball. Florida Southern, they ranked 3rd nationally. The rest of the conference was 1, 3, 4, and 5 out of those 4 of the top 5 teams. And yet again, the Sunshine State Conference is looking to be one of, if not the toughest conference in the country. Florida Southern, this last weekend, they were on the road a lot. They started off against Eckerd, where they went down to St. Pete and were challenged by the Tritons, a team who the Mocs have historically dominated. In this one, the Mocs found ways to really attack early through guys like Charlie Dalton, who have been stepping up huge for them offensively, but the defense has still been a major question, and the question mark grew even bigger in this one. In the first half, they allowed 18 first-half points to one player for Eckerd before allowing 16 second-half points to another in the second half. The Mocs look to continue to respond with big guys stepping up. We mentioned Dalton, but also 𝙏𝙃𝙀 𝙎𝙉𝘼 starting to break out again for this Moccasin side, but the issue of defense remained huge. Coach Donnelly talked about yesterday at the Florida Southern Walk-On Show how every single game is a grind and a dogfight. This one was no different. The Mocs went into half down 2, despite Charlie Dalton accounting for 1/3 of their points, and then to close out the game, they ultimately lost 89-81. This is one of just a handful of times that Florida Southern has lost 2 straight to Eckerd, and just the first time in 8 years. Coming out of that one, the Mocs had to respond, and they responded early against Tampa. Tampa was their next matchup. They played at Tampa as well, and the Mocs forced turnovers, they forced mishaps, and really beat up the strongest part of the Spartans' armor, their offense. They had a player in their most recent game, Trey Lane, score 44 points off the bench thanks to his 3-point shooting. In this last one, he didn't even scratch 15. The Mocs defense stepped up, but the biggest reason they were really flowing, 𝙏𝙃𝙀 𝙎𝙉𝘼. 23 points, 10 assists, first career double-double, first career game in the NCAA with 10 or more assists. He looked really good throughout the game. He did a great job attacking the paint and really challenging the Tampa defense, who has a lot more size than Florida Southern. On the other hand, Brady Corso, he's been in a little bit of a slump, and that's something that Coach Donnelly at the Walk-On Show, like I mentioned earlier, was not afraid to talk about. Coach Donnelly talked about Corso saying he's still a young guy. He may look like an older guy on the floor because of his ability and because of how calm, cool, and collected he is, but he just turned 19. The true sophomore transferred from St. Leo has struggled, but he did not struggle last night against Tampa. He had another 15-plus point outing, going 5 for 7 from 3 with some huge shots in the first and even bigger shots in the second half. But I won't get too ahead of myself, as the Mocs really had to attack going into half. The Mocs found ways to stay on top of it despite runs from Tampa to get even and then runs by Mocs to respond. In the second half, 𝙏𝙃𝙀 and Corso obviously did a great job of contributing, both of them being the 2 leading scorers on the team in the game. But Amari Miller and Charlie Dalton, the 2 post players for the Mocs, stepped up just as big. Charlie Dalton hit huge free throws down the stretch and got huge boards as well. Amari Miller, he did Amari Miller things. He got offensive boards, he got tough buckets, and of course, made it to the free throw line. The Mocs entered the matchup 9-0 over their last 9 against Tampa, and they ended it 10-0. They found a huge win on the road and found just the 2nd time ever in the series history for a team to have a double-digit win streak against another. Florida Southern owns the previous one, and the coach who coached that, Link Darner, who won a national championship in 2014-15 with the Mocs and is now the head coach of the Tampa Spartans. In case you're wondering, he's 0-5 against the Mocs since returning to the SSC. We had an interview with 𝙏𝙃𝙀 𝙎𝙉𝘼 after his 23-point and 10-assist outing. Let's roll. 𝙏𝙃𝙀, 23 points, 10 assists, first career double-double, first game with 10-plus assists, but the biggest thing for you was hitting those shots early. What got you in that rhythm?
Coming out and defending, man. My teammates, they always finding me. They always telling me I don't gotta force anything. I'm one of the best guys in the gym when I'm staying patient and just waiting on things and reading it out. So tonight, I feel like the ball just found me. I hit shots, and it was easy for me to find my guys and put them in transition. And man, just glory to God, man. I've been praying a lot. Just I started off the beginning of the season really slow. my teammates kept believing in me, my coaches kept believing in me, my family kept believing in me, man, and I just kept putting that work in and just believing in the work.
And the biggest thing for you was having that confidence to put those shots up, and we saw that early in the second half. But we also saw that confidence in your teammates late. What built into that comeback and maintaining that lead at the end of the game?
Just things that we work on every day. Those situations, man. We're killing each other in practice, man. You've seen it. You've seen it firsthand, man. It gets real gritty and grimy. And Coach said before the game, man, gritty not pretty. So we wanted a gritty, grimy win here at Tampa. It's not easy to win here, and we came out with the dub. We knew we had to respond to that game at Eckerd, man. So, and I'm just glad we did.
Thank you, Ďaseer. We don't have the guys behind us, but everyone was behind you tonight.
Yeah,
appreciate you, and see you next time.
Ďaseer is always a great guy to interview, and hopefully we'll have another chance to interview some guys after this next game, as the Mocs will take on Lynn. They scored just 66 points against them earlier this year in a game that Donnelly defined as one of the weaker ones of the season. But Donnelly also said after that last one against Tampa, this is the biggest game of the year, the biggest win of the year to this point. The Mocs have a chance to carry that momentum into a game where they need to respond. They've played everyone in the conference so far, and now they get to start their home stretch against Lynn. They'll be playing Lynn at 6 o'clock at the George Jenkins Fieldhouse. Of course, show up and show out for the Mocs, but if you can't, I'd be more than happy to have you listen on the Sunshine State Conference Digital Network.
Men's hockey lost 2 straight games against FAU. As they started 4-1, they were losing in the first period against FAU, and that's when we found Will Marshall scored 2 straight goals to make it a 4-3 game, giving life in that second period. And that's where it stopped for the Mocs, as they lost 8-3 with 4 goals in that third period. It was a rough night for the Mocs. But they then came back home, and they started very, very well in the second game. 3 straight goals in that first period to make it 3-0 going into the second. But that's when it stopped. After that 3-0 start, it was 4 straight goals, including an overtime crusher against the Mocs. And that was all she wrote against FAU. They'll be away at Jacksonville University tonight, a team that they beat twice this October.
Women's basketball continues a really strong showing this season. Unfortunately for them, though, it's against some of the best teams in the country. They have just played the number 2 team in the conference, the number 3 team in the conference, and now moving up in the ranks, the number 4 team, Tampa, as we'll talk about the results from that game later. Against Eckerd, the Mocs found ways to battle despite an early jump from Eckerd to go up 14-2. The Mocs had a battle in the paint. They couldn't find too much from the perimeter as they shot below 30% from 3 in that game and struggled to shoot above 40% in any quarter. They did not in any in that game against Eckerd. The Mocs found ways to stay tough, though. Their defense was staunch, forcing turnovers against a really stingy Eckerd offense and forcing Eckerd, one of the top programs in D2, to really have to go deep in their back. Unfortunately for the Mocs, the experience for Eckerd showed. They found ways to get buckets and score efficiently until the very end, when the Mocs found that final surge, trying to attack with players like Gianna Voss, Sydney Gomes, and Nia Blockton. Whether that's in the paint, at the free throw line, or on the glass, the Mocs really battled. But at the very end, it came down to a rebound. And that rebound was ruled a jump and then switched to a timeout, giving Eckerd the game. The Mocs had to quickly look to respond after that as they went to their crosstown, more like just down I-4 rivals in the University of Tampa, who they haven't beaten in over 5 years and who they haven't beaten under current head coach Megan Zekas yet. Florida Southern came into that game looking to set the tone. Unfortunately, the Spartans, they showed their strength early. They stayed back on defense, forced the Mocs to play in the half court, and ultimately forced them to turn it over and get down early. It was a defensive showcase to start the game as the Mocs couldn't find a bucket, and Tampa really couldn't either. And that was in great part thanks to Gianna Voss, who I mentioned earlier, as well as Monica Ballester. Speaking of Ballester, she was great. She scored 17 points in 33 minutes. She started the game 4 for 5 from 3 and was a major reason why the Mocs climbed back in and were within a possession entering the 4th. Along with her, we saw Lily Ringard make big shots and play some great defense as well as making great hustle plays. Sydney Gomes had her moment. She attacked downhill and excelled at it, but just couldn't find that rhythm in this game against a really good Tampa team. The Mocs stayed mostly in the half court in the game, something that they haven't done too much before the last few games, which is part of why their points per game has dropped from their historic start to the season. With that, they struggled to find the buckets late. Despite their early struggles, they turned it up in that second and third quarter, shooting above 40% from the field in each of those before falling back down to earth and shooting 20% in that fourth quarter. The Mocs were held to single digits, and that's all she wrote. They couldn't find the answers, and Tampa just simply played better than the Mocs. Florida Southern, though, did find some bright spots. Lily Rankard, she looks to be back. 2 for 2 from 3. She played 26 minutes, and she made some tough buckets. They will look to respond, though, against Lynn, a team they've only been once in the last 4 years, and that was earlier this season. They'll be playing them at home at the Jordan Shankins Fieldhouse. 4 p.m. is tip-off. Make sure to show up for the ladies. They need your support, and they will look to turn around what has been a slight skid after a historic start to the season.
The spring preseason rankings are starting to roll out, and I know Carl is excited, and so am I, as we have a plethora of different sports to talk about. First, women's lacrosse. They were 18-3 last season, which brings their preseason ranking to number 2 in the SSC coaches poll and number 3 in the IWLCA all of Division II poll. Tampa last year, they were the kryptonite for the Mocs, as they lost not once, not twice, but 3 times to Tampa last year, including their playoff game. And it's going to be really hard to replicate last season's stats, as Abby McFerrin, Hannah Hale, and Gianna Voss will all be not on the team this year. But if any coach can do it, it's 13-year head coach Kara Reber, and also 8 SSC championship appearances for her. It's unbelievable. Moving on to baseball, the SSC coaches poll ranked them at number 2, once again behind the University of Tampa. They can't get away from them. Jevin Relaford and Grant Thorman are both gone. In fact, Relaford, he'll be playing at USF, their starting shortstop, according to the coach. And also according to the coach, this team is going to be faster than last year, which is unbelievable considering they had 240 steals last season, shattered the record. They'll go on to face the University of West Florida at their first game of the season next Friday. And mind you, that was the team we lost to twice in the regionals.
And that will do it for this week's edition of the Snakebite. Super excited for baseball season to come up. Tampa did just recently get that 10th national championship, passing the Mocs for the most all-time in Division II history. The Mocs, they feel really confident coming into this year. You mentioned the speed. They're also really looking at the hitting that they've added this season. Make sure to stay tuned to Henley Field, FCMocs.com, and everything in between. And make sure to show up in person for the Mocs. We'll be here for you next week on the Snakebite.
Let's go.
There you go.